Well, brilliant. I think it's actually time to kick off. No mai haramai ki tēnei hui, tēnā koutou katoa, and a very warm welcome to you all. Welcome to our very first local elections and Māori wards poll for the 2025. This is our candidate briefing and the very first, and there'll be some more to come as well. It's lovely to have you all here today. Ko Sheres Fulian Ingoa. I'm the Manager of Governance Services here at Whakatane District Council, and I also have the privilege of being the Deputy Electoral Officer for the Whakatane District for the 2025 local elections. It is a pleasure to welcome you all here today at this briefing. We'd like to begin with a karakia led by our kaumātua tikanga, Te Ua Chapman, to open our session in the right spirit. Te Ua, if I can invite you up, please.
Nau mai hara mai rā mo tēnei kaupapa imu i a tātou. Nau mai hara mai a tinanga me e roto e te puaka whaka. Nau mai hara mai koutou. Māku e taki a tātou karakia mo tēnei e hui hui. I runga te matua te tamata wairua tapu, amen. I hono reikroore ki te atua he maunga rongo ki te whenua whakaaro pai ki ngā tāngata katoa. Hei mua koe a mātou e hua hei tohutoe a mātou mahi katoa. He mea timata, he mea mahi, he mea whakaoti roto ai koe. Ka whiwhi ai o ki mātou ki te oro tunu e te mea, e ata whaitinei a koe, o I karaiti tō mātou areki, āmene.
Kia ora, thank you, Te Ua. So before we dive into the agenda, just a quick health and safety housekeeping notes. So today's briefing is live streamed, recorded from the camera at the rear there, so you will be directly broadcasted to YouTube. We also have some of our beautiful staff, or Hayley, that is taking some pictures today, so if you do feel that you do not want to be in any of the pictures, just if you want to just let her know. So there's toilets, wharipakus, which is opposite the Margaret Mahi entrance, just as you walk into the council chambers foyers. And in an event of an emergency, there's 3 exit signs, so there's 2 along the side here and at the rear entrance as well. The assembly point is in Peace Park, right across the road. Please follow staff if there is any event of emergency. If you haven't signed in, we kindly ask that you please follow one of the staffs and just sign in to make sure that you are registered to being at the candidate briefing today. And for a smooth in and outflow, we'll also be opening the side doors here shortly. There's a collateral station out the back, so for those interested in standing, there is a handbook. Feel free to grab one, and it gives you all the information that will hopefully cover off today as well. So just a quick overview of today's agenda. So we have got 2 presentations today. The first will be from our very own Chief Executive for Whakatane District Council, Stephen Purdia. If we are very lucky enough, we might have Kevin Schuler, the current councillor from Tauranga City Council, present online for 10 minutes, a quick kōrero. He is, however, travelling to Auckland, so that is quite tentative at the moment. And then there's a presentation from Dale Soski, our Electoral Officer from Election Services, that'll speak to you about everything electoral process related. We would be happy to answer questions throughout, but we will have a session afterwards to cover any questions and answers as well. I'd like to acknowledge our current councillors, elected members here with us today. Thank you for your presence and your ongoing services to our communities. Your insights and experience is invaluable, so please stick around for a cuppa, a biscuit, and welcome our constituents and share your experiences. We've got a few people floating around in some of our branded t-shirts, so if you have got any questions afterwards, feel free to grab us. We've got some subject matter experts as well. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome our Chief Executive, Stephen Purdia, up to the front. Have a seat.
I just can use this. Is this thing on? Yes, it is. Great. Well, kia ora tātou to the candidates, and also I'd like to acknowledge the councillors for coming along. Thank you very much. And yeah, as Charisse mentioned, the idea is that we'll do a bit of a presentation about various aspects of council, standing for council, some of the roles, responsibilities, what it's like to be on council or a community board, and then we'll have a bit of a discussion, and then at the end of it, we'll also stick around and available for any individual conversations or questions that you may have. And I just wanted to mention I do have a bit of a unique privilege in that I both work in council, but I was also, my wife was the mayor of one of the metro cities for a couple of terms. So I kind of have those unique insights about knowing what it's like to be inside a council, but also understanding what it's like to be an elected official, having been the mayor's consort for a number of years. And what you'll find is that when you tell people you're thinking about standing for council, they'll go, "Oh God, are you crazy?" And it's a really, really difficult job, and that's largely what I'm going to cover off in the next sort of 8 or 10 slides. It is really, really hard, and you're subject to a lot of criticism, a lot of attacks, and that has gotten worse over the last couple of decades, certainly. And it's a little bit unfortunate that when we describe being an elected official, we start at it's a really, really difficult job, because the flip side of that is you're actually running a $120 million business. You're basically a director on a board of a large organisation. And it's not just a single product business, it delivers a whole range of services and products, and they're all about making the community better. And what's really amazing actually about being on a council is that while you're there, and actually mostly when you're finished, you start to see and notice all the things that you were involved in making decisions on. And they're really complex and complicated decisions, but it's really nice. I mean, my wife still enjoys it, going, actually, yeah, that was something we made a decision on, and look at the benefits it provides. So it's actually a really, really great job, but actually people start with how difficult it is. And actually speaking about where it starts, that's my first slide. It all starts with council's vision and its priorities. And usually people just sort of gloss over this bit, but this is the first part of a long-term plan and the first part of business. Once you sort out all of the formality stuff in the council, is probably around about February. All councils all around New Zealand, and around about February, will get started on their long-term plan. And that's that 3-year document. I'll talk about it a little bit later. But the first order of business in a long-term plan is setting the council's vision and its priorities. And it is a really important piece, because all of the decisions, the guidance, the policies, the bylaws, as we review them in the term that you're in, are anchored back to the vision and the priorities. Some councils, they're very broad. Some councils, they're very narrow. But they are always important because they're the anchor for the reports and the stuff that goes up to council and the things that councils talk about. And those are the current LTP vision and priorities, and they'll get reviewed again early next year. And then getting into the council structure, I like to describe it as the council makes the decisions and the rest of us implement decisions. And the community boards, they also make decisions in their own right. They have delegations predominantly around community plans, but I'll talk about community grants. I'll talk about community boards a little bit later. But the mayor and council make most of the decisions for council, and the chief executive and the staff implement them. People often wonder, why do you need so many people in order just to implement a decision? But councils, and what we're implementing is 100 years worth of decisions. So at some point in the past, a decision was made to have a library. And in order to implement that decision, you've got to build a library, but then for the next 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever it might be years, you've got to have staff to run that library, and the staff need management. And then you need operating budgets, and you need asset management plans, you need plans to replace books. So the business as usual, as we tend to call it, is all part of implementing the decisions of a council. There's a lot that goes on in the background, though, in order to make decisions. A decision-making process involves gathering information, analysing the information, then making the decision. So sitting in behind all of that is the staff's role in terms of gathering information, providing technical advice up to the council, and receiving guidance to shape reports and to enable the Mayor and the councillors to have a debate and then make a decision. And we always want them to make really, really well-informed decisions. So that just gives you a little bit of a picture too of what the General Manager's portfolios are, and then that we have a senior leadership team that is running around about 30 different business units across a range of products and services. Pre-election report, you'll be really, really interested in that. That's required under the legislation. Chief Executive has to independently prepare a pre-election report, and the purpose of that report is to give candidates, but also voters, a good understanding of what the current issues council are facing, and also what they can expect to be dealing with over the next 3 years. We're hoping to finish it next week. I don't think it's due until about the middle of July, but we're hoping to get it out ahead of schedule, just because we know that in our work program we've got a few other things coming up, so it'll be good to get it finished by the end of June. But yeah, it's almost ready to come out, and it'll go up on the website. But I just thought I'd give you a few insights into a couple of the headlines. In the pre-election report, of course, one of the big key challenges council's facing at the moment, and we're not the only council, most councils in New Zealand are running at operating deficits. That's because we all got caught out by surprise inflation and high interest rates. And of course we can only reset our prices once a year, and prices were changing every month basically for about 2 years. So we front foot the operating deficit. We're getting a much better understanding of what the scale of that operating deficit is, and also what the size of that the borrowings are going to be in order to cover our operating deficit until we're able to get out of it. So talking a bit about that, also talk a bit about the current context for council. We are starting to move out of that high inflation, high interest rate period. So just talking a little bit about that and why that's important for councils to keep an eye on, and how it flows back and impacts council business. Also talk a bit about Three Waters. That's a big issue for councils all around New Zealand at the moment, is how they step through these changes in legislation that central government are making. And then there's a Resource Management Act, local government reform, things like rates capping. You could see that in your next 3 years. And DIA is hoping to get its first set of benchmarking publications out prior to these elections. But over the next 3 years, they're going to be printing those benchmarking publications quite regularly. So just talking a little bit about that and how it might impact the business of council over the next 3 years. And then it just describes some of the big initiatives that are going on. No surprises, they're all in the LTP, but it actually just singles them out again and just lets you know what the budget is for each of those items. And of course then the finances, again, they're the same things as there's statements that get printed in the long-term plan and our annual plans and annual reports. So being an elected member, now this bit's really important, the next few slides, that's why the printing is so small. Yeah, I noticed the councillors were laughing at that, but not the candidates. Anyway, but not for reporting in the Beacon, by the way. Thanks. So yeah, the next few slides are all about being an elected member, and just a couple of the really important things. I'm not going to go through bullet point, but the first one talks about your role as a governor. You are a board member, and it's a $120 million business. It pulls in a whole pile of revenue, and then there's a whole lot of expectations in terms of services and facilities that it needs to, and products that it needs to deliver out to its community. So you're managing that. But the additional responsibility you have is that you have a lot of constituency commitments and events to attend. And I think it sort of surprises people who haven't been on council before and don't know councillors, actually how much of your time, particularly in the evenings and the weekends, goes into attending events and other constituency commitments, such as residents' associations meetings. So a couple of things. You'll need to be approachable because people want to talk to you when you're a councillor because they know that you're an influencer of the work that council does. You need to be flexible because things come in at the last minute all the time. And then there's the prioritisation and managing your time effectively. We've got some councillors manage to work and be a councillor, but actually your work needs to be really, really flexible because council business is largely during the day and then there are events in the evening and the weekends, and that shifts a lot as things pop up. An appreciation, or an understanding of Treaty of Waitangi and Te Tiriti o Waitangi is important. You would have seen in the priorities of council that we have a specific strategic priority around our commitments to partnership and working with iwi and hapu and whānau in order to ensure that there is more partnership representation in the work of council. Communication, you are in the public eye, and as I said at the beginning, that's becoming increasingly relevant to elected officials, irrespective of whether you're in central government or local government. Being in the public eye and the power of digital media for people to follow you and to make comments, and those comments to get visibility from broad groups. The idea of town hall meetings. You don't need to do those physically now. Those town hall meetings are all happening online, and people are having their say. And there's no holding back sometimes. But yeah, that stuff around being in the public eye is probably one of the biggest shifts that's happened over the last 10 years. 20 years. The fact that, just this year they've been launching some videos and tools to help elected members cope with sort of harassment and bullying and all of that criticism they have to deal with and how that weighs up on people. If you tried to do that 10 years ago, people would have laughed at you, but actually it's really, really relevant today and it's gaining a lot of legs. The other thing is councillors, not just the mayor, but councillors and community board members in some cases are often called to speak publicly at events. And also sometimes to give comments to the media. Technology, yep, you get a couple of things when you get elected onto council. You'll get a laptop, so you'll get access to emails and a meeting calendar and Microsoft Teams and all that sort of stuff, and you'd also get a mobile phone if you're the mayor or the deputy mayor. There's training and induction. We try our best to keep people up to date, and also particularly new councillors that come on board. There's a range of programs in order to help you quickly get up to speed with the business of council, because it is very, very complex, because there are so many different things and they all tie together. And actually understanding how they tie together is what enables you to make really effective decisions when you're dealing with those things in council meetings. And then, all of that is about getting into deliberations and decision making. And, as staff, we're really conscious about making sure that councillors, the mayor and the councillor, elected officials, are really well prepared when they're going into meetings so they can have meaningful debates and make really good decisions. There are two aspects. The staff usually are gathering factual evidence, but the decision making is not just about that. The decision making is also the councillors sitting around the table and bringing their constituency views, their own knowledge and experiences to the table, and the deliberations are often about the intersect of those two processes in order to make decisions. I just made a list of a couple of key documents. Well, there's a few. There's a lot of documents. First of all, there's almost 100 pieces of legislation. Local council is a highly regulated activity across New Zealand. We're an autonomous thing that represents our base, but actually we're very, very highly regulated. But I didn't go into all of that legislation. However, it plays out in a number of the documents we have. So I'll just quickly describe a few of them just in case you're not sure what they are, because they're all different. So the long-term plan, that's a 3-year plan that sets out our council's work program and then the associated budget. And yeah, we do that once every 3 years, and the process starts quite quickly after an election. And there's a number of policies that you have to do as well as part of a long-term plan. Fees and charges are really important because that's a source of revenue. It should usually sit somewhere between 12 and 15% of your revenue base should come from fees and charges. If it's getting a little bit low, what that should be saying to you is that it means that ratepayers are funding certain activities that maybe you could be having more of a user pays model across. So, you start using that lever. But fees and charges are really important because we've got to consult on them. And there are a broad range of activities that have fees and charges applied to them. The annual plan is just a variation to the long-term plan. So every year we review the long-term plan, and there's always something that pops up that no one was expecting. That usually requires you to do an annual plan and disclose what that variation is and how you're going to treat it in your work program and your budget, and then council can make a decision about whether it needs to consult on that activity. And consultation's a big deal because it's 2 to 3 months of work for staff and additional cost. District plan, plus the policies associated with the district plans. The district plan sets the development rules for your district. So it sets out the zones where you can build, what types of development you can do in those zones, whether it's mixed use, residential, commercial, industrial, and then there's a number of other chapters around environmental management and other sorts of things in order to manage how development occurs. So district plan is largely about development. Reserves management plan, so councils are required to look after reserves on behalf of government, and we'll have a reserves management plan that outlines what our level of service to that particular reserve is. So there are costs then in your long-term plan that are linked to your reserve management plan. Delegations register is really important. You can jump online and have a look at it. In the delegations register, the council sets out what all its committees are going to be and what are the delegations and responsibilities of each committee. Remuneration policy, super important because it's about, it outlines what elected officials get paid, but also it talks to things like attendance at conferences, training, what can and can't be claimed for, how we treat, how the council has agreed to treat koha and things like that. And then if you're interested and you jump online and have a look at policies and bylaws, there are just some that have a lot of public interest and you might want to check them out as you're sort of thinking about coming into the role, in particular the gambling, alcohol, public places and dogs policies and bylaws. Right, a day in the life of, just going to jump through this. Councillors, the mayor and a community board member. So a typical day. I think the main thing here is for councillors, there's a lot of reading and that catches people out. Council reports are long because they're often not about one thing. As I said, there's about 30 different businesses. So you can have reports that relate to dog controls, services at the aquatic centre, policy that needs reviewing and updating, all in one meeting, plus a number of other things. So there's a lot of reading to do. And then you're in meetings and workshop briefings and meetings. Workshops are largely about discussing things, works in progress, and giving staff guidance and direction. And it's not about your own individual view. What staff are looking for is the council view. Of course, not every decision is everybody agrees with it, but what staff need to get is a feel for where is the majority view, and then that's the course of direction they take to prepare work. And then you have the council meetings, which is where you're making a lot of decisions mostly. There's lots of events to attend, prize giving, citizenship ceremonies, particularly for the mayor, deputy mayor and committee chairs. There can be an expectation to attend those. And then for councillors, there's probably a little bit more flexibility. But to be honest, it's in your best interest to be out and about and seen, because once you're elected, that becomes part of your brand, and your ability for people to see you and to feel that you're approachable. I mean, if anyone wants to jump in with a question as I'm going through these, just shout out. A day in the life of the mayor. Well, all the councillor stuff plus. Often the mayor is needing to do specific, interviews on breakfast radio, interviews with the media. Mayor Luca was on breakfast television this week about regional airlines. There are visits from MPs, Audit New Zealand, Ombudsman, Officer of the Auditor General, Department of Internal Affairs come through town. We have delegations. So the mayor is expected to front the district in all of those meetings. So there's a lot more engagement for a mayor. The mayor often also is in meetings with staff on briefings on some difficult or complex matters or issues before they go through to council in terms of understanding what approach the staff should be taking with council on some complicated or difficult matters. Often meeting with police and health officials about public welfare and what's going on in the district, and the expectation that that is being fed back through to councillors, and councillors are able to use that to inform some of their decision making. And I think the hardest thing for mayors is you're not an individual elected member, you are the face of the district. So sometimes actually you've got to front decisions that you don't agree with. And that can be the hardest thing for all mayors across New Zealand, because as a group, you don't always agree on everything, but for the mayor, they've always got to front the decisions of a council. And then community boards, predominantly dealing with decisions on grant funding for community initiatives, but the community boards in this district play a really, really strong role in a lot of that constituent advocacy and engagement that happens from council through into staff, and then we're using those local networks through community boards to get out and reach people and get feedback on things. But yeah, on a typical day, community board meetings, community group meetings, hearing views from constituents, and quite often dealing with staff on issues around community grants or quite specific community issues in those areas. Oh, and of course, attending monthly meetings of a residents' association that might pop up. And then we're into remuneration. I'm assuming that you're probably all across this stuff, so unless there are any specific questions, and you're more than welcome to talk to us after, but that's the general remuneration, and remuneration is set by the remuneration committee. Is that the right phrase, Dale? What are they called? Authority, that's the word, authority, remuneration authority. And then there's community board remuneration, and that's about it from me. And if there aren't any specific questions for me, then I'll pass back to Charisse. Yeah. As I said, we'll be hanging around later on, so happy to have some individual chats if you want to.
That was great. Yes, thank you so much, Stephen. We do have most of that information that will be coming out in the pre-election report, as Stephen has mentioned, and there's quite a lot in the candidate handbooks as well. And we'll hear more from Dale very shortly. So as you can see, we do have Councillor Kevin Schuler online. So we just got an update to hear that he is actually available to have a 10-minute kōrero. So Herb as he's known as well-known figure in the Bethlehem community and wider Tauranga. So while he's known for his international rugby career, he has been a resident in Tauranga for over 20 years, where he has raised 5 children and his wife Michelle. So educated in Tauranga College and Massey University, he has been awarded New Zealand's Universities and Manawatu Sportsperson of the Year honours. There's so much more that I'm sure you guys will be able to hear shortly from Mr. Schuler, Councillor Schuler, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for making the time, being available for us online, and we'd love to hear more from you. So welcome. I'll pass over to you.
Thanks so much. I'm not sure whether I raised my wife, but did have a hand in the 5 children. Hey, look, it's great to be here. I'm actually just up in Auckland, getting ready for some sport, my other passion, a bit of water polo today. But yeah, really happy to come along and just share a little bit, I suppose, about the nomination and their campaigning. There'll be some of you in the audience that may be not your first time, not your first rodeo, so you may well know more than me and probably could be up here as well, but there may well be a few newbies and novices in the crowd as well. So thinking about getting into what a big chunk of us did in Tauranga last year, 8 new councillors. So that's been a wonderful experience for all of us getting to know it. But certainly when you're starting out on the stuff and not quite sure, hopefully what I can talk about today will give you even more confidence. Hopefully allay a few fears, but maybe hopefully make you even more confident to have a crack at this and get out. I really applaud anyone that's thinking about doing this. It's the ultimate in community service, if you think about it, taking it to the next level. And you're all obviously here for a reason, because you care, and that's right across the board. So hopefully today we can have a bit of a chat, let you know what the nomination and campaigning was like, and you walk out of here motivated and keen to go again and stay thinking at least. The nomination process, I'm sure you'll get some good discussion on that anyway. I'll keep that pretty simple. Just the key is follow the instructions and don't leave it too late. I didn't leave mine too late, and also I think just make sure you go through the detail and get really clear. I had a good friend who's the principal of the local kura, Hayward Cooker, a good mate of mine, and I got him as one of my sponsors or nominators or whatever the word is for that. And I said, "Are you sure you're on the roll?" And he said, "Yeah, don't worry, Herb." And then I put my nomination in, and half an hour later got a message back saying, "You need to find a new person to sponsor you." So, and if that had been right at the very end, I would have missed out. So, make sure you give yourself plenty of time, double check, triple check, and just to make that you don't want that disappointment after going through all this process. The other thing I'd say in your nomination process is it's your first start of the 150 worder profile is pretty important. It's the one thing that everyone will see before they vote for you or for someone else, and so it's a really good way to get your key messaging across and get people to know you. Also, if you do get the opportunity through the campaign, have a good serious think about doing the video profile as well, because that's another great way. I think we were the guinea pigs last year in Tauranga, and I think there was 80,000 hits on that, so pretty popular way for people to get to know you a bit better. So yeah, that's the simple stuff about the nomination process. Don't leave it too late. Make sure you got the right people backing you, and have a good think about how you want that profile. And that's sort of a bit of a good segue into the campaigning, because really I'll just give you a few ideas that I found useful. But what you're really trying to do, I suppose, if you think about it, you're trying to get the vote, and so you want your name, your face. It's about recognition and repetition and real simple messaging. I think you're not trying to run the city at this stage, guys. You're really just trying to get out there, and so your 150 word document, it'll have your photo, it'll have your key messaging, and it'll have a little bit about yourself, and it's all the start of that building that trust with the people. Key things, understand your community is really, really important. You may be running for some real specific reasons that you're really passionate about, but you want to know the demographic of who's going to be voting for you. You want to know the issues in your community. I'm sure you will. And you got to show that you know what's important out there in the community. So just have a good think about that. I'm sure you're all, because you're in this room, you probably have a pretty good idea of what your community is and things that are important to you. You'll know that they want to resonate across the rest of the community as well. Really clear, simple messaging. Don't try and do too much. Less is more. So simple, again, repetition, recognition. I just run on 3 really simple things. I run on trust, transparency, and teamwork. I leveraged off a bit of sporting background and for me, and we have found in Tauranga, since we've come together, 8 of us new, 2 old ones, but all coming together around the table. It's a very diverse group. You never know who you're going to be in with. And so a real commitment to developing teamwork, I think it's really helped us, but it's really helped me find a place in the group as well. So I had a simple message. I just kept repeating it. Other thing I'd say, the third thing is just get a good team to help you guys. It's a fairly long campaign process and a lot of time on your own. There'll be a lot of stuff organised early as you go through the campaign. There's sort of less and less things that are organised. So having a good team with you, just how you do it, it's a long time to do this on your own. But also when you are out and about, you can get things done a lot quicker. So if it's putting up your billboards, if it's handing out flyers, it's good to do that together. And you can get those things done a lot quicker. So if you are out handing out flyers, you might have a bit of chance to stop and talk to people as well, but still know you can get the job done. Because I think I printed out 7,000 flyers, and I wouldn't have gone anywhere near handing them all out myself. But I had a couple of really good teams of people that helped me do that. I was really grateful for it. It's a lot. It makes it a bit of fun. Just really get engaged with the voters wherever you can, any opportunity you can. You're going to be public property in no time, so you might as well start now and show them that show people that you are keen to be out there, and that you're a good listener. I think it's pretty important, and that you're good at getting your message across too. Where possible, I'm useless on social media and digital media and digital platforms, but they can be really useful. I had a bit of advice and chose to do some Facebook advertising, which can be really, really targeted to your area. And so when anyone opens up Facebook, they saw my ugly face for a couple of weeks. Timed that not too far before the voting. So again, was connecting in with that theme of what was on my billboard, what was my key message. And then when people are looking at Facebook in the Bethlehem area for a while, they had to see that for a little while. Don't know whether it was a good thing or a bad thing, but again, it's all about getting in front of people. So yeah, find if you can use the digital stuff. If you can get some feedback on how things are going too. Some people in our campaign did surveys and they can help. I had a couple of people helping me in the background. I didn't get surveys, but they did, and halfway through one came up and sort of told me off because I wasn't doing a good enough job. And I sort of said, well, I'm doing my best, so I'll keep doing what I'm doing. But at that time, I was quite close with someone else in the race, and I probably did actually encourage me to get out and get a bit more visible and get out and about. So it's always good to, if you've got a way to track how you're going, that's a help as well. Last couple of things from me before you go to the next part. But the other thing I think is really important is just encourage people to vote. Last year I think our turnout was just under 40%, which isn't a lot, but you want people to vote for you, but you actually want people to vote full stop. And the last 2 weeks or 10 days of my campaign, I had a big billboard on the back of my ute, just driving around Bethlehem telling people, please vote. So the more people that vote, one, they may well vote for you, but I think it's the most democratic way to get elected. And so the more people that vote, the better. So yeah, encourage that. You want people to vote for you, but you also want people to vote full stop. And I think that really you can send that message and show that that's important, no matter whether you're in or not. The other thing I just want to say, the final thing, is probably the most important thing, is just to stay positive and be positive in your campaigns. Really focus on yourself and your strengths and what you are, not on others' weaknesses or what, why not someone else. You make it about why you. It's a real simple message you want to get across. You're trying to build, again, that recognition, that trust. And so, yeah, just really show that you're positive and that you're in it for the right reasons. Spend your time on yourself. You'll get times to talk to people, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. It's not very long. It goes really, really quickly. So keep that simple, keep that positive, and again, go back and show that you're keen to engage. Enjoy the camaraderie of the other candidates as well, guys. They're not actually your adversaries at the end of the day. I think everyone that stands for a good reason. And again, you're on the campaign, you're crossing paths. I had one guy, we actually shared and did each other's flyers out. So we gave each other 1,000 or so each, and parts of our area we shared our delivery. So again, you're up against each other, but ultimately you're not. You're all in there for a good reason. We actually also took it to the next level. We had Friday night drinks, all of our candidates in our little area. And again, just it's a long trip, and you're meeting these people all the time. So we thought, hey, we might as well get to know each other and support whoever got in the end of the game. And the other side of that too, with the STV, with the type of voting, you won't get everyone's first vote. But it's really important to be someone, if you can be in the top 3, that's a really good way to, so there was 3 really good female candidates in our ward, and it was funny watching when the votes came in. There was, they tended to follow when one of them fell out, the votes tended to go to the next female candidate. But when the last of those fell out, I got a real big lift in votes from the last of them. So, yeah, just building good relationships right across the other candidates. If you're not the first vote, you're happy to be the second, happy to be the third. You don't want to be the one that's either totally loved or maybe at the other end of the spectrum, the either-or vote. So, yeah, that's it really. Hopefully enough there, and there's plenty more to talk about. But like I said right at the start, really applaud you for considering and being in this room and thinking about representing your community. It's you can think it's daunting, but it's a really, really satisfying role, and a really rewarding role, and a privileged role to be in. So encourage you to keep thinking long and hard about it. Hopefully what I've said today helps you make some happy decisions and some good decisions, and look forward to one thing I'll also say, if anyone does want to have any other advice or communication or support along the way, I'll make sure my number's there that you can get in touch with me, and always happy to help. So thanks for your time, everybody, and enjoy it. You're heading for a very interesting phase in your lives. Thank you.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, Councillor Schuller. Valuable information. Does anyone have any questions for Councillor Schuller before we let him get off to what he's doing in Auckland this weekend?
Chiefs or Brumbies?
Chiefs or Brumbies?
Oh, tonight? Chiefs. Of course it's the Chiefs.
Thank you so much, Councillor Schuller. Very valuable information, and I most certainly feel informed. It is really nice to hear from candidates, current councillors, potential candidates. It's always quite different sometimes when you're inside council and you don't really get to experience what potential candidates are going through as they're standing. So such a journey, and it's just evident that you do need support wrapped around you and a team, but council staff are here for support as well. So thank you so much, Councillor Schuller. I really appreciate your time.
Good luck.
Thank you. I'd like to now welcome Dale Soski, our electoral officer, up to the front. And Dale will present you with all of the exciting election process related information. Thank you, Dale.
Is this on? Everyone here? First of all, I've got to apologise because I've got the dull and boring part. That was really exciting stuff, and I'm going to sit down because I've got a sore hip, if you don't mind. So, kia ora tātou. My name's Dale Ofsosky. I'm from Election Services based in Auckland, and I'm the Electoral Officer for Whakatane District Council, and I've got another Electoral Officer for about another 22 councils throughout New Zealand. I've been running elections now for 40 years. My first election was 1985, so there's a wee bit of experience there. Although every election seems to throw something different at us. So there seems to be something new every 3 years, either legislative change or Māori ward poll or anything like that, that we have to keep on our toes about. So there is something always new, and it keeps us busy. So without further ado, I will get on and run this. Right. So, bit of an agenda there. How do I become a candidate is what I'm going to cover off. What do I need to know about campaigning? And how does voting work? So I just thought I'd start with some key terms. WDC, Whakatane District Council, of course. BOPRC is the regional council. An elector is a person who is eligible to vote and who is enrolled. So it's really important, that last part, and who is enrolled, because you can be 18, if you're not enrolled, you're not on the electoral roll, you can't vote, or you don't get a voting pack in the post. The electoral roll is a list of electors who are either on the Māori or general roll, and the Māori electoral roll is a list of electors who are enrolled on the Māori roll, and the general electoral roll is a list of electors who are enrolled on the general roll. Before I go any further, I would really just interject with questions. I'm more than happy to take questions as we go through. If I'm just about to answer something, I'll tell you it's in my next slide, but more than happy to just break the monotony of my voice and just ask a question as we go. So some key dates. Nominations open on the 4th of July. That's not that far away, about another 3 weeks away. So it's coming up really, really quick. It is a little bit earlier than previous training elections. We had a slight legislative change last year to our timetable. Nominations generally open about mid-July, but they're now opening on Friday the 4th of July, not too far away. They will close on the 1st of August at 12 noon. That's our second key date. And our third key date is, when does voting open? It opens on the 9th of September and closes on the 11th of October. At midday. There is a longer voting period this time. As I mentioned, there was a legislative change made last year. So we now have, instead of 3-week voting period, we now have about 4.5-week voting period. So candidates need to bear that in mind. It is a longer voting period. And that was really to allow for postal issues. And I'll leave it at that. There's been a long delays in getting mail out and back and that sort of thing. So we have an extended voting period really to cater for that. So voting closes on the 11th of October. We will have progress results soon after that, about 2 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That will be progress results, and I'll talk a little bit more about the actual results and what they are. And then we have the preliminary results on the Sunday the 12th, and the final results, the declaration of results, by Friday the 17th of October. They are the results that actually are the important ones, and they're the ones that can be challenged if required. So, what are some general electoral information? For Whakatane, there's a population of about 39,000 people, and of those about 26,600 electors. Of those 26,600, 18,600 are on the general roll, and about 8,000 are on the Māori roll. We use the first past the post electoral system. You may recall the previous speaker talked about STV for Tauranga City. So a council actually under legislation can choose between the two electoral systems, first past the post and single transferable voting. Council can also under legislation choose between 3 orders of names that will appear on the voting documents, alphabetical, pseudo-random and random. And pseudo-random is basically when nominations close, you draw the names out of a hat, and that's the order that everyone gets. Random is everyone gets a different order, and we all know alphabetical is just alphabetical. So council has resolved to use random order. A lot of councils are now moving or switching to random order for these elections, just to, I guess, mix it up a little bit. Elections will be held for the regional council in tandem with the district council, and also we'll have a Māori ward poll for the district council, and I've got another slide on that. There will not be a Māori constituency poll for the regional council because they work their Māori constituency under separate legislation, so there will be one for Whakatane District Council. So what elections are we going to have this time round? So we've got Whakatane District Council, we have the Mayor, of course, elected at large. We have 10 councillors. Of those 10 councillors, 7 will come from the general wards, and then we have 2, 4 and 1 listed above there with the maps, the corresponding maps. And then we have the 3 Māori ward councillors, 1, 1 and 1 from 3 Māori wards, and there they are there, and there's the maps there. In addition to the mayor and the councillors, we have the community boards. So we have 24 community board members from those 4 community boards there, 6 and 6. And then we have the Murupara Community Board, which is further subdivided into 3 subdivisions, 2, 3 and 1, as you can see there. I guess you're all familiar with the breakup of the district. Regional Council, we have 3 regional councils over the area, 2 from the Eastern Bay Plenty General Constituency and 1 from the Kohi Māori constituency. So they will also be on the voting document as well. So on to the Māori ward poll. Council is required under legislation that has been passed that it must undertake the poll. There are about 42 councils, I think, throughout the country that has to hold this poll, and it's really those councils that established Māori wards without holding a poll that are now forced to hold a poll with the 2025 elections. And the question is going to be quite simple. We've tried to keep the question simple, easy to understand. It will be the same question right across the 42 councils. And there as an example over on the right there is I vote to keep Māori wards and I vote to remove Māori wards. So it's nice and simple, easy to understand. I think the legislation said disestablish and all that sort of things, but we wanted to keep it really quite simple. Outcome of the poll is binding, okay? So if the outcome is yes, we want to keep Māori wards, that will remain and apply for the next 6 years, 28 and 31 elections. If the answer is no, we want to remove Māori wards, then that issue of Māori wards cannot be reviewed until 2032, okay? So the outcome will apply for 2028 and 2031 elections. Regardless of the outcome of the poll, the Māori wards will be in place for the 2025-2028 term. So whatever is decided on the 11th of October for this issue, then it will apply for 2028 and 2031 elections. Any questions on that? Yeah.
Can I ask the wording of the poll?
Mm-hmm.
Who stipulates that?
So the wording, there is legislation that establishes that, and they use the word disestablish. I'm a member of what's called an electoral reference group. It's based in Wellington, and it's under the wing of Taitawara, and we decide or determine a whole raft of issues regarding local elections. There's about 13 of us on the board, and we look at consistency right across the country so that everyone is the same, and wording is the same, background information is the same. So what we do not want to see is someone in the north saying something that's contrary to what someone in the south may be saying. So we mould over the wording, we mould over what the legislation says, we mould over what the intention is, We sought legal advice and we came up with that. Yeah. Oh, we don't believe we got it wrong, but we're trying to make it as easy as possible. Yeah. Any other questions on the poll? All right. So the electoral system, we're using first past the post for both Whakatane and the regional council. Pretty easy to understand. Vote by ticking the candidate names. Candidates with the highest number of votes wins, but you can't vote for more candidates than the number of positions. So in the example there's one candidate that you can elect, so one tick. If you put 2 ticks in there, it's informal. We cannot count it, all right? So it's not STV where you can rank 1, 2, 3, etc. If there's 2 vacancies, 2 ticks. If you put 3 ticks in, it's invalid. So it's quite simple, easy to understand, we hope. Candidate eligibility. To be a candidate, you must be a New Zealand citizen, aged 18 or over, and enrolled on the parliamentary electoral roll in New Zealand. So anywhere in New Zealand. You don't need to be on the roll here. You can be on the electoral roll in Christchurch or anywhere else in the country, and you're able to stand here. So there's no barrier there. But, always a but, you must be nominated by 2 people from the area you are standing in. So as an example here, if you're standing in the Rangatahi General Ward, your nomination must be signed by 2 people enrolled on the general roll in the Rangatahi General Ward area. Or if you're standing for the Rangatahi Māori Ward, your nomination must be signed by 2 people enrolled on the Māori roll in the Rangatahi Māori Ward area. So you can live anywhere in the country, no problem there, but you must be nominated by 2 electors from the area that you're standing in. You can stand for multiple positions. So a lot of people think I can only stand for one, but no, you can stand for the mayor, you can stand for a council position, you can stand for a community board position. So there's no restriction there. Well, there is some restrictions. You can only stand for 1 ward, okay? But you can actually stand for 3 positions if you want to. If you're elected to more than 1 position, if you're fortunate enough to be elected to more than 1, you take the highest. So if you stand for mayor and council and you get elected to mayor, then obviously you take the mayoral one, and then the council one, the next highest polling candidate comes up and takes that position. As I said earlier, you cannot stand for more than 1 ward. So you must choose between the wards, whether it's a Māori or general, and which one it is that you want to stand for. But there can only be 1. The other restriction is you can't stand for both the district council and the regional council. So people say, oh, I want to hedge my bets, can I stand in both? No, you can't. The law says quite clear, you must choose which one you want to stand for. I put this little piece in about contracts with the council. So if an elected member or spouse has a contract with the council over 25,000 in one financial year, there's a problem. So we have to go through the Auditor General and there's a process through there. So you should really be declaring that. If you do have that interest over 25,000, including GST, then we have to work through that, or council has to work through that with the Office of Auditor General. Council employees, yes, there's nothing to stop council employees standing for office. And if they're elected to mayor or council, there is a conflict of interest, so they must resign. Not applicable for community boards, which is interesting. So you could actually be an employee and stand and get elected to a community board, but you do not need to resign. Interesting, this little differentiation there in the legislation. Finally, you can't nominate yourself. So basically, you put yourself up for nomination and get 2 different other people to nominate you. Okay, nomination process. First off, obtain one of those. We've brought plenty of them down. They're scattered around there. I've got a whole pile up here. It's the nomination candidate information handbook. It contains pretty much everything that a candidate should be aware of. You can also download it from the council's website, have a hard copy as I said here. It contains the nomination criteria, election sign rule, campaign guidance. It also contains most, if not all, of the offence provisions. So you really need to get this and read it through so that you know what you can and can't do. If you don't read that, other candidates will have read it, and if you're not aware of what you can and can't do, you will be pulled up, and if you're creating an offence, I will soon know about it and have to action it. So it's all in there. Have a good read of it. It's a really good resource. So nominations open. 4th of July, as I said. There are 2 ways to submit your nomination. So the first one is online. Now, we had a legislative change last year which enabled us to, for a person to compile and submit their nomination online. And it's really good. You register. In fact, we've got a little video clip which we'll play if we have time afterwards, just on the simplicity of the process. So you register and you come and go as you like. You fill it out. And it's really, really simple. You can attach all the documentation that would normally in a hard copy one. You can attach your photograph, your 150-word statement, your proof of citizenship, your proof of payment, all that sort of thing can be done electronically and 24/7 basically available. So that's the best and easiest way is online. The second way is you can still do your hard copy one. Still got that one there. So you can still have that available from the 4th of July. And you can fill it out, attach your bits and pieces to it, your photograph and things like that, and drop it off in person. So that's still available, but we believe the online one is the way to go. It's the first time we've been able to use it, so we're really unsure whether we're going to get 5, 15 or 50% of candidates take us up on that. Probably the more younger, can I say that? Maybe gravitate to the online one. We'll see. So here's our nomination online nominations portal. As I said, no printing, handwriting, scanning. The beauty of that again is with the paper one, it's handwritten, and we have a dickens of a job sometimes interpreting people's handwriting, trying to get it right. Then we get it wrong, or we have our people translating it from a paper to electronic has a mistake in it or something like that, and it's really hard work. With the online one, what you submit, and I've got to caution you here, what you submit is what goes out, warts and all. Okay, so if you make a spelling mistake or you put something wrong, that's what goes out. Okay, so it's really, really important for candidates to look at their 150 words, have it peer reviewed by 2 people even, to make sure that it's sending the right messages, it's got no spelling or grammatical errors, because that's, as the councillor said earlier, that's what all the electors are going to see about you, the main piece of information. So it really is important. You can enter your statement electronically, so as I said, what you submit is what appears. You can upload your photograph, and you can instantly confirm your nominators are eligible. So we're now doing away with the issue that Tauranga had, because the online nominations links automatically to the electoral roll. So if you enter in someone's name and it instantly checks with the electoral roll, a message will come up, an invalid nominator, because they're not on the roll. Okay, instantly tells you to go and get someone else. The criteria with that is that it is looking at the electoral roll, so whatever name you're putting in, it must be the name that appears on the electoral roll. So you can't put in a nickname or something like that, because that's not the name on the electoral roll. It's got to be your full name on the electoral roll. But it will short circuit all of that and put the candidate's mind at rest, so when it's submitted, we already know that it's a valid nomination with regard to the nominators. So each nomination requires a $200 nomination deposit, which includes GST, and that's for each position you're standing for. So if you're standing for mayor and council, that's $400, okay? Most candidates get that deposit back. If you poll greater than 25% of the successful or lowest successful candidate, that will automatically get you your money back, providing you submit your election expenses return, which is another piece of the nomination paper, which is a legal requirement that must be returned. 150 word candidate profile statement, we discussed that earlier on. You can have 150 words in English, plus you can have 150 words in Māori, but they must largely be consistent. Okay, so you don't get 300 that's totally different. So you can have 150 words in English and largely translated it into 150 words in Te Reo. We say largely because when you translate into Te Reo, 150 words in English into Te Reo, it will be more than 150 words. So it's got to be largely consistent, but the law does require or specify that it must be maximum of 150 words each. You can have other languages if you want to. So you can have, I don't know, Hindi or Samoan or anything like that, but it must total no more than 150 words. Some candidates where they've got differing demographics in their community may have 50 in English, 50 in Mandarin and 50 in Tongan or something like that if they want to. Recent passport size colour photograph. We really encourage it. It's not mandatory, but we do encourage you to submit that because, believe it or not, most electors want to see what you look like. So it really is important to do that. We do stress recent, please. Not a 10-year-old photograph or a photograph that's been photoshopped. It's got to be realistic, okay? We will push back if we believe that it's been tampered with or something like that. So it's got to be realistic for the public out there. Evidence of New Zealand citizenship, we do request that. It's not compulsory, but we do request that because we have been caught where a candidate believed that she was a New Zealand citizen. They came to the country when she was 2, always thought that they was a citizen, got elected. It was challenged, and when pushed for further information, she could not produce it because she was not a citizen. Already been elected, we had to go through a very expensive by-election in that situation. So now we ask for that for the protection and safety basically of everyone, that, you know, it's not hard, copy of your passport, that's fine, and we're just satisfied now that you're a citizen. Candidates, you can declare an affiliation. That can be a group, an organisation. If you're belonging to a group or organisation, you can say that. Quite happy with that. Most or many candidates use the word independent. And what they're saying there is, I'm independent, I'm not linked to any organisation or group. Many other candidates just leave it blank, which is fine as well. If you are using an affiliation, I do need proof of that. So if you're part of a political party, national political party, I will need evidence that you can actually use that term. Okay, and not just dragging it down for your own advantage. Okay. There will be some affiliations which I will not accept for obvious reasons. I don't accept anything that's indecent or slanderous, and I don't accept a slogan. All right, and I put that in deliberately because over the years I've had candidates try to get a slogan in as free advertising, basically for their campaign on the voting document as their affiliation. That is not what it's intended for. If I go back to the definition of an affiliation under the Act, that's what I must follow. So I will reject a slogan. Now, I will use an example. A number of years ago in Auckland, there was a group of candidates that wanted to offer free rubbish bags, way back in the day. And so the slogan, the affiliation came back as 52 free rubbish bags, which I rejected. Complete slogan. So that's an example that I won't accept. So just, I do look at those quite closely, and I am quite tight on that. So you're required to include your statement on your principal place of residence. So where are you on the electoral roll? Is it inside or outside of your area as well, of where you're standing? That's outside of your 150 words. And you must list any other positions you're standing for. So if you are standing for council and community board, then you've got to say that on your nomination paper. That goes out with the voting documents, that you're also standing for other positions. And that just is another messaging, if you like, for the electors out there that this person is standing for these other positions. Nominations close at 12 noon on Friday the 1st of August. They close at 12 noon sharp. We will not accept a nomination at 1 minute past 12, all right? If you're in Sharice's office at 1 minute to 12, we will close the door and accept that and process that. But anyone at 1 minute past 12 coming into the office will not be accepted because nominations have closed. Which leads us on to what the Tauranga councillor said is don't leave it to the last minute. Really, that is a really important message. Alleviated a little bit with our NOMS online portal where we can do that checking, a lot of that checking before you submit it. But if you hand deliver it at 5 to 12, there is a problem with one of the nominators or something like that, you've got 5 minutes to fix it. And I've seen it all. I've seen people running down the street and shoulder tapping, where do you live, can you nominate me, and all that sort of thing with 5 minutes to go. Then they'll rush back here at 2 minutes past 12. I've got it now, it's all updated. And I said, I'm sorry, nominations have closed. So again, we just can't stress enough the need to get that in early so that it can be checked. So this is a candidate profile statement that has probably been completed correctly. The candidate is standing for mayor. They've supplied an affiliation. Their principal place of residence is in the area that they're standing for. They have supplied a photograph and they have supplied a statement. So that's what it'll look like. It's probably all familiar with previous elections. But we put here the worst case scenario. So the candidate is also standing for mayor, but they have not supplied an affiliation, which is fine because not everyone has an affiliation. Their principal place of residence is not in the area they're standing for. That's fine as well. You don't need to live in the area. They've not supplied a photograph and they've not supplied a statement. So you can see the difference between the two. If someone's reading through the booklet and they see that one compared to that one, and it reinforces the point that I made, you know, people want to see what you look like as well, and a little bit about what you stand for. It's really, really important. So on to voter eligibility. So if you're on the general roll, so I'll do the general and the Māori roll. So on the general roll, you can vote for 5 issues. So obviously the mayor is there in the middle. You can vote between 1 to 4 general ward councillors and between 1 to 6 community board members, 2 general constituency regional councillors, and of course the Māori ward poll. So that's if you're on the general roll, and if you're on the Māori roll, mayor obviously in the middle there. You can vote for 1 Māori ward councillor depending on the ward that you're in, 1 to 6 community board members, again depending on the community board you're in, and 1 Māori constituency regional councillor, and the Māori ward poll. So that gives an idea of what Māori in general electors will be voting for. Any questions so far? All good? Great. So campaigning, I get this question asked a lot about this time. When can I start campaigning? You can start campaigning now. There's no restriction on when you can start campaigning. In some jurisdictions, campaigning started at Christmas time, basically, with people announcing their campaign and that sort of thing. So it can start any time. There is a signs policy that signs can go up 8 weeks before election day, so there can be no signs placed on property before the 16th of August. And the signs policy for Whakatane is that it can only be on private property, no public land, okay? So you can put your signs up on approved, well, let me rephrase that, seek approval from the owner before you put your signs up on their fences and things like that, because we've had instances where approval hasn't been obtained and we have all sorts of slanging matches going on and that sort of thing. So from the 16th of August they can go up. Signs must be removed within 3 days after election day. So election day is on the 11th, so you have until the 14th of October to get them down. This is a bit of quite a lenient policy. Most councils, or many councils, actually have them removed on the day before the election. So there's a little bit of leniency there to actually get them down after the event. And the full policy for the election signs there it is on the council's website. All election advertisements must show contact details of the authorising person. Again, I stress this. I get a lot of complaints about this over the election period. I call it the election tittle-tattle. Other candidates are watching what other candidates put out there. And if you've got a sign or a leaflet or something on Facebook or anything like that that's not authorised, I hear about it because it's actually actually an offence, okay? So we've had a situation already where in another council where someone has printed thousands of pamphlets, no authorisation statement. They have to be binned. So they've got to put the authorisation statement in. So it's really, really important. And it can be on signs, notices, pamphlets, on web pages. So if you're putting something on social media, you don't have to put it on every post and tweet and message and that sort of thing. It must be somewhere on your homepage, just so that we can see that, yes, there it is, authorised by. Which leads me into social media. We heard from the councillor. Great way to campaign. Pretty much it's instant, it's far-reaching, and it's free. Okay? So it's a really, really good way to start campaigning. You can promote yourself, you can promote your policies, you can, some candidates have run polls, informal polls and that sort of thing. You can encourage people to vote, you can push out the messaging, you know, expect voting opens on the 9th of September, expect the votes to come in after that, and by the way, when you get it, don't forget to vote for me. All that sort of stuff is quite legit. Fake news, we're hearing more and more about fake news. That is not acceptable. Where it comes to our attention, we'll do our best to deal with it, but it is not acceptable. Council's media channels, you'll be aware that council must remain neutral. When it comes to an electoral process, council must remain neutral. When it comes to the election, when it comes to the Māori ward poll, everything like that, council itself must remain neutral. I really, really stress that. So council itself will be monitoring its Facebook and those sorts of social media outlets to make sure that nothing slips in that will trip the council up. Cyber security, again, we just put this in there. Keep safe. It's a pretty bad world out there in social media land. Cyber security, it's getting worse. We also heard that earlier on. It is getting worse. Computers can be hacked. We have a lot of issues creeping in now, particularly with female candidates as well, with nastiness and that sort of thing. So it really is an awareness to make sure we keep everyone safe. Be mindful of election offences. As I mentioned earlier, they're in here. Read them. Others have read them, and if you're not aware of what they are, you could be tripped up. So they're all in there, printed out for you, so just be mindful of them. Donations, how am I going for time? All good? Okay. So yes, you can receive donations to spend on your campaign. Nothing wrong with that. However, all donations must be recorded and declared after the election. So it's how much and who it came from, unless it's anonymous, and anonymous means anonymous. It means that the candidate genuinely does not know who it's from. You might have a $100 note tucked under your front door mat, and you don't know who it's from. That's genuinely anonymous. But if a friend of yours slips you $100 who you know, that is not anonymous. So you must be aware of that. You cannot accept anything anonymous over $1,500. Okay? So if it is over $1,500, sorry guys, it comes to me to offset the cost of the election, not to me personally. Well, it comes to me, but it goes back to the council. So the law's quite clear on that. But there is no limit on the donations. So you can get in, $50,000 in donations if you really wanted to. You know a lot of people, but it must be recorded. But there is a limit on how much you can spend. That's the critical one. So it goes on position you're standing for in the population of that area. So there we have the mayor, for example, the population of 38,290. a person standing for mayor can spend up to $20,000. And you can see that as I run through all of them, there's 7, 14 and 14, and the whole raft of smaller wards and smaller community boards, $3,500. So that's your limit. Let me just see over here. I've got this covered. Expenditure limits include GST, all right? Make sure that when you do your tallying up of expenditure, it includes GST. Most candidates don't get anywhere near the limit, so you're okay there. And some candidates come to me and say, should I include this or should I not include that? And I said, play it safe. If you're well under the limit, just put it in for transparency and play it safe. You can't add limits together. So if you're standing for mayor and council, you can't say, okay, I'm standing for the mayor and Rangitaki General, so that's 27,000. That's not the case. You take the high limit and that's it. So if you're standing for the mayor and Rangitaki General, then you spend $20,000, including GST. There is a form attached to your nomination. It's called the Electoral Expenses and Donations Return. That must be returned to me by the 11th of December. It is mandatory not to as an offence. If you spend nothing, write nil, but get it back to me by the 11th of December. If you don't get it back to me, we do have to pass your name on to the police. And strangely enough, the police do something about it. So it's really good that they do. But it is a requirement. So I say this right up front. Keep an account of all your expenses and donations because it is required to be recorded and made public.
If someone started campaigning in like January, they still have to record everything they have to record everything that they've spent from January.
Correct, because the legislation says before and after the 3-month applicable period, you've got to account for it. So what that means is you can't spend up large on the today, and then you think that, oh, my 3-month applicable period kicks in on the 11th of July, that's when my limit starts. Doesn't work like that, So those returns, expense and donation returns, are a public document. They are available for 7 years on Council's website, so anyone can look at those for 7 years. And I just put a note in there, care to ensure that it's accurate. If it's not, someone will trip you up. Someone will challenge you and say, but I saw that you got 7,000 leaflets printed or whatever. Where is it in your form? And you might say, well, they were donated by a friend. Immaterial, because if it's donated, you've got to put a reasonable market value in as well. It's all in the booklet here, so just a few traps in there, but as I said, make sure it's accurate and complete. Most candidates don't go anywhere near the limit, so just put it in. So voting period mentioned earlier is starting earlier, 9th of September, 4.5 weeks later to the 12th of noon on the 11th of October, 12 noon. Voting packs will be delivered from the 9th to the 22nd of September. Previously there was a 6-day legal period to deliver. Now it's, I think, 14 days. They're all not going to be delivered in the first 3 days, unfortunately, because with the postal service now as it is, they're just under-resourced, so they need the longer time to get the mail out. Once it's out, of course, people have to have time to vote, and then we've got to get back in the system to us by the close of voting. Able to campaign up to and including election day, that's another question that I often get asked. Can I campaign on election day? Absolutely. Well, up until midday, because no point in campaigning after voting is closed, but absolutely you can. And with special votes, they'll be available at locations. We'll have locations set up in our booklet and on the council websites. And we're also having vote boxes dotted around so that people can actually drop them off. With the removal of so many post boxes or street receivers by New Zealand Post becoming harder and harder for people to return their votes. So we're having vote boxes, ballot boxes basically, spread around the district so that people can easily return those in a safe and secure way. Candidates not to collect votes from electors, please don't do that. You just don't know who's watching you. Don't go around to rest homes or whatever and think that you're doing a great community service. You're not, because you're actually committing an offence, because you can't be seen, you can't have someone else's voting document in your possession under the law. Let people return them themselves either through the postal system or hand delivered. I think there are some exceptions, matrons or whatever they're called now in rest homes can do that and gather them up and put them in the postal system themselves. But you as candidates, please do not go around collecting other people's votes. And voting closes again, voting closes at 12 noon on Saturday the 11th of October, and again I just remind you, it is sharp. 12 minutes, at 1 minute past 12, we cannot accept a vote because voting has closed. So during the voting period, we'll do a return schedule available on Council's website. There's the 2022 one. It will be updated daily, and it's by the ward, so you can keep a track of the turnout and basically how things are going. And you can see there that, what did we get, 48% I think it is, I can't quite read that, in total from 2022. Results. So we'll have 3 lots of results. So we'll have voting closes at midday, we'll have progress results on election day afternoon. It will be about 90% of votes. So that's all the votes that have been returned except for special votes and except for those hand delivered on that Saturday morning. And what we've seen over the last few training elections, a significant number now are coming in hand delivered on that Saturday morning. They've suddenly remembered, I've missed the post, I've found my vote, I want to vote, I've got 3 hours or whatever it is to return it on the Saturday morning, and we actually get an avalanche of votes coming in on that Saturday morning. So do not assume progress results are final. Whatever the results are, whether they're progress or preliminary, they are not final, okay? They are still subject to change and will change. It's only the final ones that are final. If it's a really close election, do not please go out and party on Saturday night that I've got elected, if they're really close, okay? We had an instance where a mayoral candidate in another jurisdiction was a very close result, thought they had won, went out on a party on the Saturday night and was overturned on the Sunday when we did the preliminary result because it was just so close. So we just encourage everyone, just acknowledge that, you know, they're not final until they're final. All candidates will be contacted and the media advised of our results and then of the progress results, and then that's on the Saturday, and then the preliminary results on the Sunday, which will include all votes counted except for special votes. And again, we have a lot of special votes. We had a good number of special votes in 2022 and they are increasing, so we are expecting a higher number this time around. Special votes that have to be treated differently. There is a declaration with a special vote which has to be completed by the elector. Those, or the content of those, go off to the Electoral Commission on the Monday, and the Electoral Commission then have to confirm yes or no. Is this person eligible to vote? If the answer is yes, then we count it. If the answer is no, of course it goes until we are unable to count. So we're expecting our final results by Friday the 10th, and hopefully it will be maybe earlier, but we're suggesting now Friday the 17th. And then elected members take office the day after the public notice. So if we declare our results on the Friday the 17th, then the elected members will take office on Saturday the 18th. And of course, you can't act until you're sworn in at your first meeting. Have we got a date for our first meeting? 31st of October. So elected members will be able to act after that meeting, but before that, between the 18th of October and 31st, I think it's the Chief Executive has the pleasure. So we have some resources available. Candidate handbook, which I've said, electoral legislation. It is a very prescribed process, and I have to follow this to the letter of the law. Believe you me, I do. If I get it, I will become unstuck if I don't. So we follow the local electoral act and local electoral regulations. That can be found there on the legislation.gov.nz. Another way of observing, if you like, is to attend a council meeting. How does it actually work? What's the dynamics of it? They meet here, but what are the dynamics? Read the agendas and the minutes. And some of the agendas, I believe, are very substantial. And I think it's pretty much reading, isn't it, for an elected member? So just bear that in mind. Or talk to a council staff member. We've got a number of staff members here. Charisse would be more than happy to talk to you about some of the logistics and issues there. So that's me there. Contact me, Electoral Officer Dale Ofsosky, based in Auckland there, and my deputy is Charisse, based here at the council. Yes.
Philip Jacobs. I want to come back to the question of spending electoral expenses. The legislation, as I understand it, requires me to file a return in regards to my electoral activities, the expenses incurred in my electoral activities.
Correct, yep. Which are defined.
The electoral activities included various things, including obviously advertising, and it specifically says in subclause C that occur within the applicable period before the election. Yep. And the applicable period starts, I believe, 3 months before, on the 11th of July.
Yep.
So is it the case that I have to return in my electoral expenditure my current advertising?
Yes, you do, because it's further defined, and I can find it for you, that defines the applicable period as or expenditure before and after the applicable period. And I can show you the chapter and verse on that one.
Yes, we'll follow that up, because I've seen something to that effect which talks about when you're getting in invoices or when you're paying invoices clearly before and clearly invoices after, you can apportion them to the before period and the period before that when you were not subject to. So yes, we'll discuss this and clear it up.
But it is quite explicit or clear in the legislation. Yeah.
Yep.
Any other questions? I hope you found this helpful. As I started off saying, it's rather the boring and mundane aspects of the election, but it's necessary.
I'll ask one more question.
Sure.
I have been significantly participating in social media. Is it the case that you're actively monitoring social media, or you will receive complaints about activities on social media?
That would be a question for the council to answer. It's outside of my sphere.
If I understand it correctly, council will be monitoring, however, it will be limiting in terms of the interaction. So for the likes of a deputy electoral officer, we'll work alongside our communications advisors to make sure that the information, the commentary is screened. And if there's any non-adherence to it, then we'll be in contact with our electoral officer.
The reason I ask that question is because I'm aware that a number of the existing councillors, and indeed no doubt some of the candidates, do not participate in social media, and some of the commentary that appears is often quite nasty or antagonistic against said persons, particularly existing councillors are being held responsible for all of the activities of council, and they have no opportunity to respond.
If I may just add to that, and just to clarify, it's that depending on the resource that we do have available, most certainly Whakatane District Council social media channels will be able to screen and monitor. It would be incredibly difficult for us to cover all of the social media for individuals and potential candidates out there, but we'll most certainly try our hardest to scan as much as we can and make sure that individuals adhere and raise it if there's any concerns.
So you might privately contact people posting on social media and suggest that they are being a little bit aggressive?
We won't. It's likely that I'll raise it internally with our electoral officer, and we'll follow due process to make sure that those matters are addressed accordingly.
Certainly council's own social media outlets will be monitored, but we can't monitor everything out in the community.
Yeah. Yes, that's the very issue. So
if it's
social media is
yeah.
is a garbage pit where all sorts of stuff happens, and some of it can be reflective of broad community concerns, but some of it can be very targeted to individuals, which are in fact extraordinarily broad generalisations for which there is no evidence, and
very grey. It is very grey. Yeah.
People cannot be held accountable for that.
Yep.
And fortunately, in this town, one of the major political forums in social media in respect of this area has, in just the last week, suspended itself. And I think that's actually a good thing for the community, because it allows the candidates to use the traditional means of communicating with society, making their case without being undermined by all sorts of adverse comments which they're not aware of and they can't defend.
Certainly if something is brought to my attention, I will investigate it, and if it's bordering on defamatory or anything like that, then of course an offence has been committed under the Defamation Act, so we will report it through to the police. Yeah. Over to you.
Brilliant, thank you so much, Dale. Before you do go, that's absolutely great, very comprehensive update and information around the elections process. We do have a very short video that I'd like to just show all that are here, and it's the option to be able to apply online through nominations, so you don't have to do the physical paper copy. So I'm just going to play that through for you guys if you just want to have a look.
Nominations can now be submitted online. To do this, go to esp.electionservices.co.nz and click the Sign In button. Create an account, and once you've done that, sign in with your details. Select the council that you wish to stand for and the position that you wish to stand for. You'll need to know exactly how you are enrolled on the electoral roll. This could be just your first and last names, or maybe your middle name as well. You'll also need to know your address on the electoral roll, so you can check this by going to vote.nz. If you find that you're still enrolled at an old address, you'd probably want to update this now. That way, you'll receive your vote in the mail when voting opens. You will need to be nominated by 2 people from the area that you're going to stand for. It's a good idea to talk to these people in advance. That way you'll know their details on the electoral roll. You'll also need their email address so that they can receive the email to sign and nominate you. If you're known by an alternative name and you wish for this to be shown on the voting document, you can edit this here, such as by removing your middle name. If you're affiliated with a political party or group, you can also select this here. Enter in your contact details and let us know whether we need to keep them confidential. Pay careful attention to the different settings for the privacy details. Enter in your bank details. If you qualify for a refund, this is the account we're going to use. There are a couple of things you need to declare, such as being a parliamentary elector and a New Zealand citizen. You can use the tick boxes to select these. Now upload a photograph of yourself. You'd probably want to make sure this is a good one, as it will go out to all of the voters when voting opens. Now you can enter your candidate profile statement, no more than 150 words. There are also some other rules around this, so have a read of those too. Now make your $200 deposit via online banking and upload a screenshot. Also, upload proof of your New Zealand citizenship. Once your 2 nominators have signed to nominate you, and you've completed all of the sections, you're ready to submit your nomination. But check it first. Once you submit it, you won't be able to modify it.
Brilliant. Well, that nearly brings us to a close for the candidate briefing for today. Before we do close with a karakia and step into a bit of an informal opportunity for a hot cup of tea and coffee and a biscuit at the back and some corridor between current councillors, potential candidates, I guess we'll just open the floor for any final questions that anyone might have. And I'd just like to acknowledge Katarana O'Brien as well, General Manager Strategic Engagement from Regional Council, that's here with us today. So if you did have any particular inquiries with regards to Regional Council and perhaps the governance structure or any questions related to their positions, that she's here and you can catch her afterwards as well if you've got a question. No, well, that's brilliant. I'll invite Te Ua Chapman just to close our candidate briefing with a karakia.
He mi atu ki o koutou ngā kai kōrero matua mo tēnei whakāturanga, tēnei te mi atu ki o koutou. Ki o koutou te hāpori, te koro matua, kai kauni hera, hara mai nei mo tēnei kaupapa, tēnei te mihi. Ki o koutou te whānau o te kauni hera, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Kia inui tātou. I otanga te kaupapa i tēnei hui, ko taira mātou ki te tāmutungatanga. Ko koe rā te timatanga me te whakamutunga. Ko tēnei mātou he whakamihi atu ki a koe mō manakitanga mai a mātou i tēnei rā. Te kaitia mātou i roto i tō koro ai, aroha i koro ai manakitanga moa ki tōnu atu i te pō, i te ao, i te ao, i te pō, haumi e, hui e, tai e. Kia ora tātou.